Lately, Chelan had been very upset about her relationship with her husband. She herself could not understand what was the matter. She loved her husband and accepted all his weaknesses. He seemed to value this about her, but now things have changed. Everything annoyed him lately. He started to leave the house, seeking solitude and rest. It felt as if Chelan bored him or burdened him in some way. Yes, today she asked him to clean the kitchen after dinner, but it was just a normal family meal. The clean-up merely involved wiping the table, loading the dishwasher and pressing a button. And instead of helping her, he got offended. "Are you implying I don't contribute, that I'm a burden to you?" Enrique asked. "What are you talking about? Have I ever complained?" Chelan tried to justify herself and calm him down, but her husband was already upset. "Oh yes, of course you're tired because you're a businesswoman. You earn money, you have responsibilities and problems, and am I just a burden then, or a pet living with you?" "Stop it! You could work too. You're educated and smart. Do you want to work at our firm? I can find you a good position. We'll always be together." Yes, Chelan understood that Enrique was simply bored. For over 6 months, since leaving a job that offered no room for development, he'd been at home. He searched for a job but found no success. He also turned down the opportunity to work with her. "Thank you, but what would I be? A laughingstock. That's what they'd call me," he said with resentment. "Why? You'll have some responsibilities, you'll fulfill them, and—" "No, you don't understand," he interrupted. "I mean one thing, but you hear something different. You don't even realize how you're hurting me. I'm sorry, but I need to take a walk, or else we'll just argue again." "How long are you planning to walk? Maybe I can come with you," the woman suggested, though she didn't feel like going out at that moment. She was tired and the weather wasn't conducive to a stroll. "As long as possible. You don't need to accompany me. We're like Siamese twins. I'm tired of being together all the time, both at home and on the streets," Enrique retorted. He got up and left the apartment, indifferent to the fact that he had left his wife upset. "Do we really often go out together?" Chelan thought to herself. "No, we don't. And we don't spend much time together at home. I work during the day. In the evenings we typically sit at our individual gadgets. Is it so difficult for a man to be idle? Or perhaps he resents being dependent on me, his wife. However, it's not my fault, and I never blamed him for it. On the contrary, I support him as much as I can, and do everything to make him feel like the head of the family. But our minor issues often lead to arguments." However, Chelan never once thought that all these fights could be because Enrique was unfaithful to her, and not because she was sure that she was dear to her husband, not as a source of income. It was because Chelan was not a jealous person. She didn't want to waste her energy on jealousy. However, soon her friend Brittany helped her see the reality. One day, Brittany, on her day off, dropped by for a cup of coffee and a chat. She boasted about her new clothes, discussed a miraculous face cream, shared some gossip, and then asked, "Why are you at home today? It's boring. Why don't you go out?" "No, Brittany, I have a lot to do at home. I need to tidy things up. Maybe later I'll have time, but for now, I just want to rest in the evening," Chelan replied. "Well, how much housework can you have if you have a stay-at-home husband? What does Enrique do all day?" her friend wondered. "Well, he's a man, isn't he? How can men really help in these matters?" Chelan dismissed. "Aren't you afraid to take such a risk? Men, when they have nothing to do, are likely to find something. Some might start drinking, although Enrique is not like that. He's more likely to start cheating." Oh, I'm not worried about that. Enrique is not that type, and he loves me. Are you sure? What about Abby? Brittany asked with wide eyes. Abby? Chelan was puzzled. Oh, forgive me, I thought you knew. I assumed you were immune to such situations. What situations? What are you talking about? I don't know any Abby. Chelan felt an unpleasant chill down her spine as the pieces of the puzzle began to form a disturbing picture. Brittany, stop talking in riddles. I really don't know anything, and I don't suspect my husband of anything. But since we're having this conversation, tell me, who's Abby? Perhaps I'm acting like a fool and don't see what's happening right under my nose. Chelan was determined to find out the truth, although she didn't believe Brittany's words. You see, Chelan, I don't want to upset you. It's nothing serious. He just hangs out with someone, perhaps just a chat. Her name is Abby, I think. She's divorced and, like you, a businesswoman. But don't worry, she's not attractive. She's older than you and not pretty at all. She has a potato-like nose, a wart on her cheek. What does her appearance have to do with anything? What do you mean by hang out? Where? And how do you know all this? Chelan was becoming nervous. Yes, she wasn't the jealous type, but how could she remain calm in a situation like this? Well, I've seen him a few times, and I'm not the only one. I've seen them together in the car, going somewhere. We live nearby, so I've noticed through my window. My mum even once asked me why Enrique divorced you, because she had seen him with her. I didn't tell you right away because I thought, if you're calm, everything's normal. Maybe it's just business. Or maybe you don't mind it happening this way. Chelan sighed heavily. Her husband almost every evening runs away to be alone, and he's gone for 2 or 3 hours. Last week, he didn't even spend the night at home, but he explained quite reliably that he was with a friend whose wife had given birth. They had been drinking, so he didn't want to return home in that state. Also, in one phone conversation, he referred to his interlocutor as Abby, but Chelan didn't pay attention, thinking Abby was just a friend. Now, it seems, he's having an affair with this Abby. After saying goodbye to Brittany, Chelan deliberated and decided not to confront her husband for an explanation immediately. Instead, she planned to first investigate the situation through her connections. That evening, the woman acted as usual. She was quieter than usual, which at first pleased her husband. However, before they went to bed, he asked, "You're so quiet tonight. What's wrong?" "No, it's all right," Chelan answered. "Just a little trouble at work, but don't worry. Everything will be fine." "I don't doubt it. You always deal with your problems easily," Enrique replied. And it suddenly occurred to Chelan that he probably wasn't even happy that she was so quiet and didn't try to scandalize. He seemed to have no reason to leave the house today. Meanwhile, she was indeed preoccupied, but not with work, but with finding out who Abby was and how she had entered her husband's life. Enrique is undeniably an attractive man, a fact that hasn't gone unnoticed by many, including Brittany. Chelan suspected that her friend harboured feelings for her husband, though Riki appeared indifferent to Brittany's affections. Maybe she was saying such things about him out of spite, but it wouldn't hurt to check. Upon digging deeper, Chelan discovered that Abby was a successful businesswoman, even more so than herself. Abby was also quite attractive, and only a couple of years older than Chelan. She had no noticeable flaws, except for a mole on her cheek, which, ironically, many people found appealing. Chelan wondered if it was Abby's mole or her successful business that had caught Enrique's attention. After all, Abby was wealthier than Chelan. The woman didn't know what to do with all this information. It would be pointless to interrogate Enrique. Naturally, he would likely deny everything. Approaching Abby directly also seemed unwise, as it could lead to unnecessary humiliation. Finally, Chelan resolved to gather more information before making any decisions. She set her business aside to investigate. Despite her embarrassment, she saw no other choice. She was unwilling to tolerate infidelity, but accusing someone without certainty was not an option either. The following day, she told her husband, "Enrique, I need to go on a business trip. I'm unsure how long, perhaps a week. Can you manage alone?" She noticed a spark of joy in his eyes at the news. However, he quickly composed himself and managed to suppress his joy, and he even feigned disappointment. "It's unfortunate that you're leaving for an unspecified duration. I'll manage, of course, but I'll miss you. Is there a chance you could take me with you?" he asked, trying to sound upset. "Honey, I'm telling you, I'm going on a business trip, not vacation. I'll be back soon, don't worry," Chelan reassured her husband. "Well, I hope so," he sighed, unaware of Chelan's real plans. She took a small vacation from work, a benefit of being her own boss, and left everything to her reliable manager. She rented a small room in a rundown hotel on the outskirts and began to prepare her plan. First, she asked her distant relative, "Aunt Faith, could you give me some old unwanted clothes to wear? A dress, sweater, shoes perhaps?" "Why do you suddenly need all these things?" Aunt Faith wondered. "I need to go to the tax office, and I don't want them to think I'm wealthy, otherwise they'll tax me heavily. I need something simple," Chelan explained. "Okay, I'll find something." Aunt Faith always found it difficult to part with her items. Her closet was always full of worn but never discarded clothes. Therefore she quickly found a dress, a sweater, and everything else that Chelan needed. "My darling, now you will be taken for a poor woman. They'll not only cut your taxes, they'll give you money to take with you. How will you walk through town? People will see you and think you're really poor." Auntie shook her head. "Don't worry, everything is under control," Chelan reassured her. To ensure anonymity, Chelan bought a simple wig and nondescript glasses at the market. She wanted to alter her appearance, and for her it wasn't such a daunting task. After all, she had attended a drama club in school where she learned various techniques, including aging oneself and changing facial features. The next day, a transformed and unrecognizable Chelan left the hotel to apply for a cleaning job at Abby's company. The woman had seen an advertisement seeking technicians and decided that it would be a great opportunity to see everything from inside. Chelan was hired without any formalities or paperwork, and her passport was barely glanced at, which slightly irritated Chelan's entrepreneurial gene. How can a company be so careless in selecting its staff? It's even dangerous. She mentally criticized her rival, now her employer. However, this lax attitude towards documentation was precisely what she needed for her plan that day. After acclimating herself to the scope of work and gathering the necessary supplies, Chelan began cleaning, gradually moving towards the executive offices. In person, Abby was even more likable than in her photograph. She was smiling, friendly, and devoid of any arrogance. She welcomed Chelan kindly and said, "I hope you'll be with us for a long time. Clean the office, wash, dust, take out the garbage, and don't touch anything on the table. Even if you think it's disorganized, it's my disorganization. If you tidy it up, I won't find anything," she added cheerfully. "Sure, I know. The table, it's the Holy of Holies," Chelan replied and got down to business. Of course, she had no interest in Abby's business because she was interested in something else. And Chelan was fortunate because by the end of her first day, Enrique visited Abby. Upon seeing him, Chelan quickly turned her back, bent over a bucket of dirty water, indicating she had no interest in visitors. She had other things to do. However, Enrique didn't even glance at her. He hadn't come to see the cleaning lady. Abby came out of her office to greet him, giving him a quick peck on the cheek. "Hi, darling. Why are you so early today?" she asked with a gentle smile, her eyes sparkling with love and affection. "Because I am quite free in the near week. I have finished out a few things, and I can devote an entire week to you." "Great!" Abby clasped her hands. "So that's how it is. I'm just a few things for him to deal with. Oh, I wish I could hit you with this dirty rag right now. By the way, it's strange that Enrique did not tell his mistress something like my bimbo had left, but referred to some business. Maybe Abby doesn't even know he has a wife. Anyway, we'll see." Enrique and Abby secluded themselves in the office, but soon they came out, said their goodbyes to the staff, and left. Chelan remained unnoticed by her husband. It was in her best interest, but also disappointing. His flirtatious interaction with Abby was particularly heart-wrenching. The next day, Chelan approached the boss's office again and said, "Apologies, Abby. I didn't take out the trash and water the flowers yesterday because your husband had visited you," she mentioned timidly. "Future husband," Abby corrected with a cheerful smile. "We're about to get married. He's just been swamped with work issues recently. Now he finally has a few days off, and I'm thrilled." "I see. Congratulations," replied Chelan, smiling. Abby's radiant happiness was impossible to miss. "And what about you, Chelan? Are you married?" Abby inquired. "No," Chelan responded, taking a deep breath. "Oh, what heavy sighs." Abby sympathized. "Why is that? Divorced or an unhappy love?" "Unhappy love," agreed Chelan. "I was about to get married, and then I discovered that my fiancé is already married. He deceived me." Genuine tears welled up in Chelan's eyes. Her superior noticed this and hurried to support her unfortunate employee. "Oh dear, I apologize for your distress. Forget him. You're young, and you'll find a better, loving fiancé who is free and honest." "Yes, I suppose you're right. It just hurts a lot," Chelan admitted. "By the way, just imagine how his wife must feel," Abby exclaimed. "Did she find out about your relationship?" "Yes, she did. She came and told me everything." "I see. She must have been upset," Abby assured. "No, she wasn't crying, but she was very upset," said Chelan, already fully recovered and wiping away the traitorous tears. "Well, that's good. What's your problem? So, you were in love and now you're not? She's the one who's married to him. She's probably hurting a lot more than you are. Be glad you escaped from such a man in time. If he cheated on his wife, he would have cheated on you too. Would you have wanted that?" "Of course not," Chelan agreed, realizing that Abby doesn't know that Enrique is married. In other words, he's just deceiving his mistress, and for what? Given what Chelan knows about Enrique, it's easy to guess. Money. He must think that there's more money to be made from his mistress than from his wife. Chelan continued to work at a slow pace, her sympathy for Abby growing each day, and it was odd. She should hate and despise her. She was her husband's mistress, but Chelan also realized that Abby was oblivious to the truth. Therefore, she couldn't entirely blame her. It was Enrique who was disloyal to both his wife and his mistress, even promising to marry Abby. Apparently, once Chelan returns from her business trip, Enrique will immediately start talking about divorce. Now Chelan was prepared for it, and even planned to be the first to state she did not want to live with a liar and a cheat. She decided to come here at the end of her imaginary business trip, without this masquerade, and show herself to the lovers at the moment when it would be too late for them to deny it. Chelan visualized her husband's shock and sighed deeply once more. She had never imagined her marriage ending so tragically. Perhaps she should warn Abby about the sort of man she was planning to marry. This woman clearly loved Enrique, and it was evident her feelings were genuine. However, witnessing her own husband meeting his mistress after her work was intolerable. Every minute, when they seemed that no one could see them, they hugged, kissed, exchanged tender words and confessions, paying no attention to the cleaning lady. But Chelan noticed everything, and her heart ached not only for herself, but also for Abby. The presence of the cleaning lady in the office remained unnoticed, not only by Enrique, but also by other employees. They did not consider Chelan a significant person, and many spoke quite frankly in front of her. Thus she learned of a conspiracy which would bring considerable damage to the company. It would have been more logical for her to keep silent, because it was none of her business. Let her rival's business collapse. But now Chelan saw Abby not as a rival, but as a friend in misfortune, and did not wish her any harm. She recognized that Abby, like herself, was a hard worker who achieved everything through her own efforts, without any influential relatives to give her a leg up. Why should she lose everything? Unrequited love, though painful, can be survived, but losing a business to which she dedicated so much time and effort, it was too much. In addition, Chelan found out the most unpleasant news. The partners who were going to deceive Abby had been introduced to her by Enrique. Apparently, Enrique had decided to exploit and rob Abby in this way. In this way, he wouldn't need a divorce or to go through with his wedding to Abby. However, Chelan didn't want to find out what he was up to. Instead, she decided that she would do her own best to prevent the deception of a woman who deserved nothing bad at all. On the day of the critical negotiations, Chelan arrived at the office disguised as a cleaning lady, but instead of starting her cleaning duties, she went directly to the office where the meeting was being held. She made her appearance just as Abby was about to sign a disastrous deal. "Wait, wait!" she exclaimed. "Abby, you shouldn't sign. It will ruin your whole business." Abby looked displeased, asked, "What's the matter with you, Chelan? What are you doing? How do you know which deal will fail and which will not?" At this point, Chelan removed her wig and shook out her hair. "I'm not a cleaning lady. I also own a firm much like yours. I overheard those who planned to deceive you. I know business, so it was obvious to me. Let me prove it to you quickly." And she detailed the problems with the deal and why it should not proceed. Abby comprehended everything, kicked her supposed partners out of her office, and the two women found themselves alone in the office. "I don't understand, Chelan. What is this all about? Did someone send you?" "Who?" "Nobody. I came on my own, as I am not just the owner of the company, but also Enrique's wife." "Yes, indeed, his legal wife. Here's a marriage license." "That's insane. Is it true?" Abby whispered. "Yes, it is true. I discovered quite accidentally that he was having an affair with you, but I was unsure of how to handle it. So I thought I'd first get a job with you and understand the situation. I realize this may seem silly or immature, but it has provided some benefit, at least in business. As for me, my life with him is over. We'll divorce." Abby sat with her face in her hands, then resolutely raised her head. "Chelan, thank you. You've not only saved my business, but probably spared me a big mistake. This will help me even more. I will, of course, sever all ties with him. He's the one who insisted on this deal, and I wondered why he would do such a thing. You sit here. He should be here any minute. I'll simply announce that it's over between us. As for you and him, as you decide." "But it's over between us too, so if you do still love him—" "What love, Chelan, are you talking about?" "Yes, I loved him. and I'll probably cry for a long time after our breakup. But he intended to ruin and rob me. This assumption will help me overcome my heart pain." Enrique did not keep them waiting for long. He soon stormed into the office full of indignant complaints. He had already heard about the broken deal. The people with whom he had made an agreement had called and explained everything. He didn't notice Chelan at first and turned to Abby with a speech of indignation. "What is this? I got a call from decent people which I recommended to you, and what they told me is outrageous." "Hello, Enrique," Chelan called out to him, interrupting the flow of his perturbation. The man turned around and saw his wife. "What is it?" he asked, turning pale. "Are you here? Why?" "Yes, darling. You have failed on all fronts," Abby replied. "It was Chelan who thwarted this deal and told me everything. And yes, Enrique, I know everything. And I'm telling you, it's over between us. There will be no wedding and no relationship." "Yes, but there will be a divorce," said Chelan. "You should remove your things from my apartment today. I'm not going to live with you any more." The man's eyes, filled with fear and shock, darted from one woman to the other. He realized he was in a desperate situation. If he had been alone with either of them, then he might have been able to persuade them to maintain the relationship, but now the situation was undoubtedly horrific and seemed impossible to rectify. "You know, ladies," he finally said, his face twisted in anger, "where have you ever seen a wife and her mistress team up against the man? Well done! And there are my last words for you. The first one who changes her mind and calls me stays with me, but it's going to take a long time to apologize." Saying this, he jumped out of the office and was followed by the friendly and merry laughter of both women. "Yes, Abby, we fell for a charming man," Chelan exclaimed. "And I didn't even realize he was married. He skillfully portrayed himself as a loner," she continued. "I was tricked by that too," Chelan admitted. "I mean, he wasn't married before me, but he told me that he'd always been lonely after he'd had some sort of unhappy first love, after which he hadn't trusted women for a long time, and now he'd met me, and it had all come to a head." Despite their shared past with Enrique, neither woman wanted to rekindle their relationship with him. Abby refused to converse with him, and Chelan filed for divorce. However, their shared experience led to an unexpected friendship. Surprisingly, the two women found common ground and even decided to collaborate in their professional lives. Enrique was furious, realizing he had lost two seemingly profitable and successful deals. He was left with nothing, but he was not alone. Brittany, Chelan's friend, had been interested in him for a long time. Just to get close to Enrique, she informed Chelan about her husband's affair. Her plan succeeded beyond expectations. Both women abandoned Enrique, and Brittany became the person he could turn to, as he didn't have his own place. A native of the village, Enrique had lived in a hostel during his studies and hadn't acquired his own dwelling. So Enrique's belongings were quickly moved from Chelan's apartment to Brittany's. The new roommate comforted him. "Don't worry, you'll be much better off with me. I'll never reproach you for anything. I may not be as wealthy as those two, but I love you and will never leave you." Enrique reciprocated her love, but he knew Brittany wasn't the one for him. "They have ruined everything for me. How did I mess up so badly?" he thought with annoyance. "I lost everything because of them, and now my reputation is tarnished. When people find out, I'll become a laughingstock." Meanwhile, the affair left another consequence for Abby. Amidst her worries, she didn't immediately notice changes in her health, but soon she realized that she was pregnant. The woman quickly shared this news with her new friend. "Abby, Really? Chelan exclaimed with joyful surprise. I'm so happy for you. I even envy you. You know, I can't have children. I was seriously ill as a child. Can I babysit your child? Can I be the godmother? Of course you can. Abby smiled, but it was clear that something was troubling her. Why are you sad? Chelan asked. Because the child will have a mother and godmother, but no father. Do you think I should inform him about his child? They had never mentioned Enrique's name after the incident, nor did they talk about him. They only remembered and cried over him when they were alone. I don't know. As for me, I wouldn't tell him. Think about it. Honestly, what good would it do? You don't need his money or help, right? You can't expect him to be a good father. And what's the point of seeing him again? He'll just cause more problems. What if he comes to your place because you're having his child? Abby couldn't disagree with this. She decided not to tell Enrique about the baby. It was better to forget about him completely. The pregnancy initially proceeded without issues, but difficulties arose in the second half, resulting in numerous doctor and hospital visits. The women were primarily concerned about the child's well-being. And their worry proved unnecessary, as the boy was born healthy and on time. However, problems arose with Abby. Soon after the birth, a massive hemorrhage began, which the doctors were unable to control. Abby did not survive. This tragedy struck Chelan. She already considered Abby her own sister. Of course, she could not leave the baby. She already considered him almost her own. So she adopted him. Meanwhile, Enrique could not forget the happiness he had lost. He had once lived a comfortable life with a wealthy woman, enjoying the luxuries she provided. But his insatiable desire for more led him to lose everything. What did he have left? Brittany? At first she was thrilled and doted on him, but her interest quickly faded. It was understandable. When he lived with his wealthy wife, he was considered wealthy himself. But now he had squandered all he gained with his ex-wife. His new girlfriend increasingly frustrated, exclaiming, I don't get it. You're not going to work at all? You've worked somewhere before, and now what? Aren't you tired of sitting at home yourself? Brittany was indignant every day. Brittany had initially believed Enrique to be a stable, wealthy man. However, she soon discovered that he had been living off Chelan's earnings and was now dismissive of all her reproaches. No, Brittany, I'm simply fed up with everything. I can't work for a minimal wage, can I? And a decent job is difficult to find. And what will you do until you find one? Do you expect me to support you, like Chelan did? Buying you suits, taking you to restaurants and resorts? No, my dear, you've mistaken me for someone else. Go find your next benefactor. Enrique was dubious about his chances of finding another benefactor. He had been fortunate twice in his life and doubted a third time would come around. He knew he couldn't return to his previous relationships, as forgiveness was unlikely, and if that was the case, why even try? Enrique was oblivious to how his ex-partners were faring, and he didn't know that Abby was pregnant. But one day, hanging around his old acquaintances, looking for some profit for himself, he learned about the birth of his son and the death of Abby. That evening he went home distressed. Just think about it, Brittany. I miscalculated so badly. If Chelan hadn't found out about me and Abby, I would have had an easy life, he lamented. Brittany remained silent about her involvement in the matter and the fact that she had revealed everything to Enrique's ex-wife. However, she couldn't comprehend why Enrique was in despair right now. What happened? What have you heard? She asked. Enrique replied, Abby has died. She gave birth to a boy and then passed away. It must have been due to worry. That foolish girl. May she rest in peace. If she had just told me, I would have married her immediately. Now I could have been a wealthy heir." "What a tragedy," Brittany said, crossing herself. "Is the baby alive?" "Yes, he is alive. It's a boy, I think, but what good does it do? We never got married. I don't have any involvement with him, so he'll inherit everything. Or, I'm not sure how it works, but something needs to be done, right?" "Well, if the child is alive, you can claim your paternity. It's quite straightforward these days," Brittany advised. "Prove it and state that you want to raise your son. Why are you looking so shocked? Listen to me. I'm giving you a good advice," she added, deep in thought. "But how will I prove it? What will I say?" Enrique doubted her idea. "You'll say I'm the father. I lived with his mother. We quarrelled foolishly. I had no idea about the child at the time, but now I know. I mourned for Abby and I want to take my boy. Then add something pitiful. They'll return him, I have no doubt. He's your child, and along with him you will get the money." "And what should we do with the baby?" "Well, that's another matter. First, get him back. With money, it's not such a big problem. We can hire babysitters, find a nursery. I'll assist if needed." Sensing that her lover might regain his footing, Brittany became more accommodating and patient, though she privately thought, "What a lazy clown I got." And so Enrique set off to find out where his son was and how he could get him back. What he discovered shocked him. It turned out that the boy had already been adopted by his ex-wife. "Yes, what is this?" he inwardly resented. "She's going to cross my path all my life. She separated me from Abby, like a dog kicked me out. Now she has taken away my son. I'm sorry, Chelan, but you can't do that. If you can't give birth to your own children, you shouldn't take other people's children. My son has a father, and I'm not going to give him to anyone." With this message, he approached his former wife, but she refused to listen. "What son, Enrique? This boy has nothing to do with you. Abby had another man, and you mean nothing to her. You can go wherever you want, but without my boy." She knew perfectly well that Enrique had no feelings for the child and only wanted him for the money. The woman was also sure that nothing could come of his efforts. However, Enrique thought otherwise. "Okay, I agree. Maybe he's not mine. But you'll have to prove it, right? DNA test. If it turns out the son isn't mine, then the issue will be closed." "The issue is already closed," Chelan replied calmly. "I won't allow any tests to be done. This child is mine according to all documents. You would be better off asking where Abby is buried. At least bring flowers to her grave. You're only interested in her money." "What's money got to do with it? I need my son, and when I get him, I'll go to the grave with him. Do you want the child to think you're his mother and forget about his own mother? Don't be stubborn. Take the test. Why are you resisting? The child may not even be mine, but then you can live peacefully," Enrique insisted. "I already live quite peacefully, and we won't do any tests," Chelan replied, ushering her ex-husband out the door. The visit alarmed her, of course. She knew Enrique wouldn't easily back down. Apparently his life was not going well, and the child, or rather his money, was important to him. She realized she would have to protect the little boy from his father's troubles. "Don't worry, son. No one is going to take you away. You are only mine," she said, kissing her son. For 2 months, she was constantly with the baby, always holding him. However, she needed to work to support the child. She did not want to use the money inherited from his mother, realizing instead that she could earn a living herself. But one can't work with a baby in their arms, so she hired a nanny, a woman known to be experienced and reliable. The nanny proved to be a good assistant, attentive and competent, treating the child perfectly. Like many, however, she needed money. That's what Enrique played on. When he came home and shared with Brittany the outcome of his visit to Chelan, she too was upset about how her former friend was intruding into their lives. But there was no time for resentment. The clever lady quickly understood that Chelan would likely struggle to take care for the baby alone. She's still working, isn't she? Well, if she's working, she must be leaving the baby with someone. Yeah, a babysitter, but I don't know her, do I? And will she even talk to me? The man wondered. What kind of idiot are you? Brittany exclaimed angrily. The task is simple. Just stand near her house and see who comes out with a stroller. Negotiate, pay, that's all there is to it. Following her advice, Enrique acquainted himself with the nanny and persuaded her to collect materials for a DNA test in exchange for a sum of money. Rest assured it won't harm him, he reassured the woman. Just snip a few strands of hair and bring them back. You'll learn so much for such a simple task. You won't have to work for a couple of months, even more. The nanny agreed. She had to support her ailing husband and mother. That's why she constantly needed money, and saw no issue providing a service for which she was paid so well. So, Enrique was able to obtain a lock of his son's hair and conducted a test that confirmed he was the biological father of the child. The rest was procedural. He could now legitimately file a lawsuit for paternity and seek to annul the adoption. Enrique hired a lawyer with experience in such cases and portrayed Chelan in a way that was advantageous to him. He claimed that Enrique's ex-wife was the reason for his split with Abby. He further alleged that Chelan forced Abby to hide her pregnancy. This caused extreme distress to Abby, leading to her death during childbirth. According to Enrique, all this was a plot to seize Abby's property, business and money. After all, the only heir was Abby's child, who was now under the guardianship of Chelan. And it's unclear how Chelan will raise him, or if she will at all. I believe the child should be urgently taken from her and given to me, as I am the birth father. I love this baby as much as I loved his mother, and I must raise him myself in her memory, Enrique insisted. The lawyer, after hearing all this, assured Enrique that the odds were in his favour, and that he would likely win the case and gain custody of his son. Upon receiving a court summons, Chelan was taken aback. She was unprepared for such a development. Without a competent lawyer, her ex-husband stood a good chance of winning the case. With no time to find someone, she went to the first law firm she could find, explained her situation, and asked for assistance. Regrettably, only one lawyer was available, a young, inexperienced Alex Fay. There wasn't enough time to find someone else, so Chelan decided to entrust her case to him. Despite the laughter from his colleagues who believed the young man was destined to fail, she believed in him. Alex, you can see that the woman is in a difficult situation. You should be sympathetic, they said. It's precisely because I'm sympathetic that I'm taking this case. Yes, it's difficult at first glance, but no one else is taking it, and I assure you I won't let you down this time. Alex had previously lost a case which severely damaged his reputation and self-confidence. However, he believed he could handle this new assignment. He needed to restore his reputation, and failure was not an option this time. He knew he had to keep trying. If he feared failure, he would have to change his profession. His good name wouldn't restore itself, and he wanted to continue practicing law. Moreover, from their initial meeting, Chelan elicited his sympathy. Her story deeply moved him. He talked to Chelan, honestly told her everything about himself, listened to her story, and concluded, You know, I need this victory as much as you do. Let's work together to defend your truth. Tell me more about the relationship between this biological father and the child's deceased mother." Alex's honesty endeared him to Chelan. Despite his youth and lack of extensive experience, she found confidence in him and their shared cause. They couldn't allow the child to end up with Enrique. "The likelihood of that is minimal," the lawyer stated. "Enrique obtained the material for the DNA test illegally. While another test can be conducted, it doesn't change the fact that his method was improper. This, along with his unstable financial and living situation, will work against him. Additionally, his ignorance about his former lover's pregnancy and his behavior towards you both is concerning. These factors will likely hinder his case. I believe we're going to win." Naturally, they won the trial. The case received extensive press coverage, leading Enrique to not only be labelled a loser, but also thoroughly disgraced. He fell into a deep depression, spending his days on the couch, bemoaning his fate and cursing Chelan. Of course, Brittany wasn't going to put up with this, and ultimately she kicked out her miserable boyfriend. "I'm sorry, Enrique, but I can't live like this," she said, while haphazardly stuffing his belongings into a suitcase. "You're unproductive, unwilling to work, and the only thing you're good at is lounging on the couch and emptying the fridge. You couldn't even win your own son back. You failed in such a straightforward, surefire case. So, what now? Should I continue to support you? No, I'm not wealthy enough to maintain a man." Enrique had no other choice but to return to his parents in the village, who incidentally were not expecting him. The thought of going back was worse than death. However, after collecting his belongings from Brittany, he realized he still had another option. A few hours later, he left his suitcase in the luggage room and, holding a bouquet in his sweaty hand, he said to Chelan, pitifully, "Chelan, imagine how I will live without you and our little son. I'll die without both of you. If you think about it, we're already a family, parents and a son. What's stopping us from getting married again and living happily ever after?" He looked hopefully into the smiling face of his ex-wife. "Who's stopping us?" "My husband, for example," she said, and at this moment the very same lawyer, Alex, came out of the room carrying a little boy. "What do you mean? Already a husband?" Enrique was confused. From their first meeting, Alex and Chelan felt a spark between them. They spent a lot of time together, communicating, and right after their victory in court, they got married. They chose not to have a grand wedding due to time constraints. However, they didn't feel the need to announce their joy to the world. Their love for each other was enough, and happiness, as they say, prefers silence. Now they were husband and wife. Enrique, understandably, had no place in this equation. Finally acknowledging this, the dejected ex-husband discarded his crumpled bouquet into the trash and left the joyous couple behind.